We are putting together the first residential high-rise in 50 years in Newark. So I'm going to walk you quickly through the project. But first, Nancy Cantor did threaten me that she'd shut off my cable if I did not talk about why we are working in Newark. So I'll give a quick overview. As residential developers, our family's been building in the state of New Jersey for over 30 years. There's basically, I guess, three basic tenets we look at the cities we enter. Number one, are the demographics there? Number two, is there potential for institutional capital, both coming from banks, HUD, HMFA, that will follow us into those markets? And then third, and most importantly, can you replicate it? Is there really a market? I mean, anybody can put together enough subsidies that you build one project, but to truly be a market and to truly be a city, an urban city that can build, on top of that with 3 or 4 or 5 of the same projects, you have to be able to replicate it with good players. So, when we looked at the city of Newark, obviously, everyone knows about the institutional strength. I think Ommeed, really covered all the great things that have been invested in Newark over time. Obviously, the fact that there is a strong amount of asset-rich culture that's been in Newark for a long time has also been something that is kind of maybe potentially held up development over the last 30 years. But the thing in Newark about its demographics, everyone sometimes talks to the fact that population has dropped in Newark, since 1950. But if you look throughout the state of New Jersey, every major urban city from 1930 on, even Jersey City, its population peak was in 1930. It's not even today. Its population peak was like 350,000. Today it's 275. So Newark has suffered through the same urban plight that happened over the last 50 years. And now, as I think Mr. Hughes and the Rutgers Business School has shown in a latest research piece back in September, that trend is now beginning to revert back to its mean, and the urban centers are starting to get more people. So a lot of these millennials, a lot of these empty nesters are starting to move back. So that comes to the second point about institutional capital. When you look at cities that have regrown their residential components, Jersey City, Hoboken, New Brunswick, all three of those cities started with institutional capital from the state of New Jersey. So HMFA was actually the first body that started Jersey City back in the 80s with LaFrac. They built the first 2 Newport Center towers. Hoboken, the Barry family started with HUD. So in Newark, when I hear that L&M has brought in HMFA, this is the first time. Now, HMFA has probably done 70 projects in Newark that are 100% affordable. This is probably the very first residential project they've ever done that has a high component of market. That's a very good sign for the city of Newark. And the third point in regards to having good players, that goes 2 ways. As a developer, I think, Ommeed mentioned brain damage. You want to work in cities where the cities are honorable, because as a developer, all you have is time. So you want to know that the cities you're in, the time you put forth will get replicated by good standing on the city side. And when you look now in Newark, you've gone through 2 very good administrations under Cory Booker. Obviously Ras Baraka is the mayor of Newark now, and they're following suit with the same policy. Things haven't changed. And Newark's population also, this is the first time from the 2000 to 2010 census where the population has actually gone up. So things are starting to come together in Newark where you're seeing that stability. So you put these 2 or 3 things together. The seed, if you will, is the demographics. The water that's being poured into Newark now is the institutional capital. And the sun that's going to replicate this all throughout the city are the good players that we see sitting at the table. So I think when you put all these things together, you can tell that, yes, Jersey City has 15,000 permits. Jersey City started their replication process. They've had the same capital stacks being used for the last 20 years. And now Newark has finally figured out its formula, and things are starting to go. So this is our Rector Street project, and whoever's pushing through, you can just walk through. Basically what we're doing, we're reusing the old Science High School in Newark. So it's basically a 4-story building that we've spent 3 years now getting all the historical approvals on. And we are going to reuse the base of the building And then for the first time since the Colonnade project in Newark in 1965, I think it opened in 66, right before the riots, this will be the first market rate high-rise in the city of Newark in 50 years. So this project's very important. It's in the same military park sector with what L&M is doing, what NJ is doing, what Chris and Ms. Cantor have just done on the other side of the park, and we are going to start construction this fall. This will be 168 market rate units. We're not doing any affordable. We do 80/20s. We do affordable in certain markets. We felt Newark had enough affordable. So we are doing a 100% market rate project. Goldman Sachs is the lending institution, and it is our belief that the market studies that have been in Newark for a long time have shown $2.20 rents. We agree with Ommeed. We think we're going to do the $2.50, the $30 to $31 per year on rental, and we think it's really going to exceed what our banks have underwritten to. And I think the last part to tie into is also to have the right demographics, the right institutional capital, and good players. It's very important also to have long-term holders. I think Ommeed alluded to the fact that there's a lot of long-term landowners. I think the fact that now in Newark, whatever Jonathan's going to do is going to be 30-year debt from HMFA. Everything that Chris and Nancy are doing is based on a 15 to 30-year term lease. So now you have long-term holders. When you have long-term holders, you have generational developers in a city. Newark's never had that. So when I look at Newark now, we're very, very honored to be one of the 4 or 5 guys that are starting together, because it always reminds me of a quote from Thomas Barak from Colony Capital. He was a polo player, and he said, the thing about polo, you want to play with smart guys, because when you play with amateurs, people get killed. So here in Newark, we're not looking to get killed. So I thank you, and have a good day. Take care.